So this video I'm going to do some repairs. This is the lawnmower from my dad's in Romeo. It is a TORO Super Recycler, and the blade brake has gone bad on it. So I'm going to do a video on how to replace this. This is the blade brake right here. So essentially what this does is just stops the blade when you let go of the operator presence control. You engage the blade, pull that down and up, and that engages the blade, and then this makes it drive. The more you push it, the faster it goes. The less you push it, the slower it goes. And then you let go of it, and it stops the blade, and the engine continues to run. But when I release the blade, it grinds really bad because this pad has come off this metal. So I'll save the old piece and see if I can put something on it for in the future. This is the second one of these I've put on this mower since it was new. So I'm gonna, and they're expensive. That's a $60 part. So I'm going to, it was, I don't know if the price isn't on that, but yeah, it's $59.42. So I'll first thing I'm gonna do is clean it up, scrape the underneath off, give it a pressure washing, and then I'll take it apart. And you gotta unbolt the engine out, it just makes it easier. The brake is actually right there. I don't know if that doesn't really show up, but you'll see when I get it apart. It goes down through the deck, and there's a drum on the blade where there's a bearing and stuff that stops the blade. So we'll get it apart and do a video on it after I clean it up. So these are the numbers for the part, if that's any help to anyone. Alright, it's all cleaned up. Looks a lot better. And I greased, there's grease fittings on the drive wheels. I pumped some grease into them, and we'll pop the blade off and sharpen it. And the blade has to come off anyway the brake is underneath this cover, and you can get the brake in and out without pulling the engine, but you can't get the spring back around tight with the engine on, so it just takes a couple extra minutes, and I unbolt the engine and then it comes out. So I'm gonna pop this off real quick. This is the drum that the blade brake rides on, and the shoe is like right there. So we'll get this blade sharpened up, and I use a belt sander. Get a much sharper blade on a belt sander, so I'll just sharpen it, and I'll just clean this edge up and this edge up, and then I'll sharpen it up. We'll get that thing up like a razor blade. That's a nice sharp blade. I just clean up the backside roughness a little bit, but that'll slice paper no problem. So, you know, it cuts it doesn't rip your grass, it cuts it, and mulches it better when it's sharp. So, you know, the old reel type lawnmowers were like scissors. The reel went around and cut on the blade. And these, when they get dull, it just tears the grass, and then the tops of the grass brown. And it doesn't look good. So you keep your blade sharp, you keep your lawn looking nicer. So 3 bolts. This is bolted on here. There's 1, 2, 3 bolts right there. And that's the brake, and you can see the the thing has broken right here where that rivet is going on, and it's popped out of the thing, so it rubs on this drum, metal to metal. So that's the spring. It's just a pain to try and get the spring in with the engine on. So with the engine off, you can move this thing around a lot more. So I'll start taking the engine and stuff off. That only takes a couple minutes, and we'll get this all apart. So now you can see kind of what happened here. This just is all worn out and broken. You have to take this nut off, 15/16 nut, and this drum assembly. And if you ever break these bolts, you got to take this off to change them. No big deal. But this rivet was caught up in there and rubbing on the back side of the drum. And the belt rubs there too. And there. There's an idler pulley right here. And it tightens this belt up between these two pulleys. That's what engages the blade. So let me get the engine a little looser here and go from there. So there's a long pin bolt that holds that shaft into this assembly. We'll get that out. And that thing will start, you could actually probably take it out without taking the engine off, but you're not going to get that return spring, this one right here, back on with the engine on. This is the return spring that spun with the engine on, easy with it off. This little washer that goes in there. But this is the part here. So I'll take that pulley off and the belt, and you got to take all this apart, just change the belt on these mowers too. So I don't think you need to take the brake off, but you need to take that. Well, yeah, you probably would. So, alright, let's get it the rest of the way apart. That just pulls off once that blade breaks out. There's a bearing in there, so make sure you grease that up before you put it together. But we'll get the engine unbolted here. So 2 bolts hold this belt guide on for the power drive. 1 bolt's there, 1 bolt's there, and then there's 3 bolts that hold the engine on. Now with the engine unbolted, you can see where that spring catches there, and on this lever thing here, when that's all together, and it's just a bite to get together with the engine on. So let me grease that up and we'll start putting it together. I started the bolt in this washer goes right there, the spring goes right here, and then you got to kind of work this around so that spring has tension on it to where you can get the bolt through the hole. So this is a 4-hands job, so the camera's not going to be set down. Now it's going to be set down. I got the spring in there, as you can see. So I'll start putting this together. I'll say I don't have 4 hands. I've started this bolt inside of this shaft, and then I can still turn this, and that's about where that thing goes. So I just undid it from this, and I can take that bolt out and put this assembly back in. I'm going to put that in right now, so the engine's not in the way. But I can take that off to put that hook through, and I can push this around to where it hits on that, and I'm going to take this off until I'm done doing that. Hits on that, and then I can take this spring and pop it up over that, but I can't do it with holding the camera. And then I can tighten everything up and start reassembling. So I just took this bolt out to take that off to put that back in, and I'm going to put a little dab of grease on the bolt before I thread it back in there. It'll act as a lubricant, and if I ever need to take it apart in the future, won't be seized in. This is the second time I've had to do this, so who knows, may have to do it again. Okay, so this is all back together. This is all in, so now I can start, and this will be, you know, obviously out like that when you engage the blade, but this will go up against the drum when you release the blade, so that's why it's springing that way. So let's bolt the engine back on and get it back together. Alright, just put the drive, this just slides up there. There's no keeper or anything for that. The blade thing holds that in place. So now I'll put the belt guide back in place. And these are important to put in because they actually will push the belt a little bit right here, so if it doesn't release out of the leading edge of the pulley, and it'll still draw pull. So always put your belt guides back on, never disregard them. So the drive belt guard is back on. Now to put the main part back on. So there's two dimples in this and dimples in that, and you got to get these lined up with those. So this you can just put in kind of like so, and then get your things lined up. Now I got to use two hands here because I got to move this because the bolt from the pulley is hitting this, so I just got to move that a little bit. So let's set the camera down. So again, some grease or some anti-seize, and I'll have to pull that brake out of the way, but that just pushes on, and then the nut goes on, the blade goes, or the cover goes back on, then the blade. So let me finish up here. So this is on the crank of the motor, this big thing, and you can see that can turn, and this is on the blade, and that does not turn. And then when you release the brake and tighten that belt in there, the blade starts going. So basically it's all together other than getting the covers and the blade back on. So let's get to it, and then I'll clean the air filter and change oil. Alright, so we got the blade cover back on. This goes on. This has a bevel and a flat. You put the flat against that. Blade goes on. Sharp edge up. This is part of the mulching. The anti-scalp disc. And the nuts. Then we can clean the air filter, and I'll warm it up and change the oil when I test all that out while it's warming up. So I'm not going to choke it because often tipping it up floods it. So I'll just put it to full and we'll see. Alright, we got power drive. Blade engages, and it doesn't grind and the blade stops. So I'll let it warm up, we'll change oil and clean the air filter. Look at how sweet that Briggs Stratton idles. Those are the... Yeah, I can turn the idle down to where... Look at that. I'm not going to turn it down that low. But I did adjust the carburetor. The mixture screws right there, and the idle speed is that Phillips screw in there. So, yeah, I think it runs pretty darn good. Like I say, I just did a little adjusting on the carburetor. Runs good. So I cleaned the air box, the cover, the filter. I got to re-oil the filter, drained the oil out. That was oil that was in it. And now I'll refill it. It takes 20 ounces. So that's 16 ounces. This is what I'm putting in it. And then I'll put another 4 ounces in. So now I'll put the other 4 in. That'll make 20 ounces. Whether that shows up or not, I don't know, but it's right on the full mark on the dipstick. So for the air filter, my brother's going to hate me for this because he uses all these special sprays and stuff, but they're kind of a pain to clean. A little lacquer thinner in a pan, and you can clean these air filters right up. So I just put some oil on it, squeeze it around, work the oil all through it, then wipe the excess off the rag or a paper towel or something, and then stuff it back in the motor. So the oil will absorb the dirt in the foam. The foam's in, put the cover on, and we'll call it done. Okay, it's done, and we're going to just give it a quick start and see how it goes. Cleaned up nice. Hope you enjoy my videos. Please subscribe, and thank you for watching.